People feel that addiction is related to your genetics. There's a lot of people in your family who are having struggle with alcohol, for example. You must have the gene or some gene that, and I don't see it that way. What I'm understanding is that people behave the way that they're trained to behave. Mm-hmm. So I believe that we trained ourselves into addiction. Mm-hmm. And I believe that we can train ourselves out.
Peace and riches blessings. I am Michael B. Beckwith, the host of Take Back Your Mind. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time zone your body temple may be in, I say good day to you, good evening to you, good morning to you. And welcome to Take Back Your Mind. This is the podcast where we give great encouragement and inspiration and transformational education around taking back the mind. You know, you're not your mind. You have a mind. You don't want to believe all the things that your mind is saying because you don't know where those thoughts come from, those beliefs, those opinions, those points of view. But who you are as a spiritual being, who you are as a being that has emerged from the eternal within you is intrinsic wisdom, transformational knowledge, creative intelligence, unconditional love. And so we're taking back the mind so the mind can be an instrument of awakening, an instrument of inspiration, instrument of beauty and love, rather than simply the repository place by which other people's thoughts and opinions and points of view, even your government, can be planted and grow into possibly weeds of discontent and separation. Welcome back to Take Back Your Mind. After the life question of the week, I get to have a conversation with Tommy Rosen, a good friend, a great yoga teacher, a great individual that brings yoga to the practice of and the life of recovery. So we'll be with Tommy in just a moment. But right now, we do have a life question of the week. It's coming from Kay. Kay says, how can I move on from feeling regret for my past actions that have hurt others? For example, betrayal in relationships and other less than stellar actions, as I now try to embody my best self. But first of all, let me just congratulate you on using regret positively. And that is, when one comes into the level of regret, not shame, but regret, it means that you're willing to change your way of living. You don't want to do the same things that you've done in the past. That's the beneficial aspect of regret. We don't want to live there forever, but we want to use it as a point of transformation. So you say, how can I now embody my best self? First of all, self-forgiveness is necessary. You don't want to live in shame. Shame is not a spiritual practice. Blame is not a spiritual practice. Spiritual practice begins with self-forgiveness. You look at the actions, you look at the things you said or thought or did, and you actually forgive yourself for them. This doesn't mean letting yourself off the hook. It means you actually sit, have an inventory, an honest look at what you said or did that may have hurt somebody else. And that vibration of regret is there, and you transmute the vibration of regret into forgiveness. You forgive yourself as if you were forgiving someone else. For instance, you would place someone else at a chair, have them sit in front of you, and say in substance, you know, I cut the strings that bind us. I forgive you for what you did or didn't do. What you did or didn't do cannot keep me from my destiny. I forgive you and I set you free. You do the same thing for yourself. All forgiveness is essentially self-forgiveness, but in this particular case specifically, you're regretting some things that you did. So you must forgive yourself. And then you make amends with those individuals that you hurt. Similar to the 12-step program, you only make amends if in fact it's not going to cause more drama. It's not going to cause more issues in another person's life, in their lifestyle, or in their relationships. If you can make amends without causing more drama, you do so. If you cannot, if it's going to create more drama for you to make amends to another person, you write it down on a piece of paper that I forgive myself for A, B, C, and D. Spiritually, I am making amends with so-and-so's soul. You take that piece of paper, you read it, you get into the spirit of the amend, you burn it, and set that energy free. And now you begin to become available to the next great vision and version of yourself that wants to emerge. That's the baseline of the vision process. You ask, what is it within me that is trying to emerge, that's trying to come forward, that's trying to express itself? It's coming from your soul. And you begin to learn to feel and then to articulate that. Okay? I think your question is a good question, and I think so many people are benefiting from this question. Have a beautiful day. I'll be right back with Tommy Rosen. Peace and blessings, everyone. As I indicated earlier, I have with me today in person Tommy Rosen. Beautiful, beautiful brother, beautiful man. If you don't know who Tommy Rosen is, I'm going to give you an idea. International renowned yoga teacher, meditation instructor, addiction recovery expert, with over 30 years of continuous recovery from addiction. Through his classes, workshops, courses, and destination retreats, of which he just came back from a powerful retreat, Tommy has helped thousands of people to overcome their addictions to be free. He's the founder of Recovery 2.0, a global organization dedicated to inspiring and uniting people in recovery from addiction through the practice of yoga and meditation so that they can heal and thrive. He's also the host of the In the Circle podcast, offering insights and inspiration to those on the path of discovery in recovery. His first book, Recovery 2.0, Move Beyond Addiction and Upgrade Your Life, was published to international acclaim and continue to transform the lives of readers across the globe today. Welcome, brother, to Take Back Your Mind.
Thank you
You're
so much.
helping people take back their life, their mind, their soul, their everything.
I'm beyond grateful.
And I'm glad you're here. And
Thank you, Michael.
It was good spending a little time with you there in Rishikesh in India during the International Yoga Festival.
It's a pleasure every year to be there, and definitely you're one of the high points for us and one of our mentors and teachers while we're there.
It's beautiful, you and your wife. It's always whenever we see, first of all, when we have the Arti there and you get up and speak and we're sitting there watching you, it's like, oh, Tommy's here. Key is here. Oh, this is very beautiful. It's good to see you.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about your personal story and, your path to recovery.
Sure.
What was your addiction and what was that moment where,
I'm looking at addiction from a very broad standpoint these days.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily related to a substance.
Right.
It may not even necessarily be related to a behavior.
Mm-hmm.
More a frequency, an attachment to beliefs that don't serve, an attachment to behaviors that don't serve. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily, again, related to a particular thing, but a way of being in the world that is predicated on the idea that there's something wrong with this present moment and it has to be fixed at any cost.
Right, right.
And I grew up in a mind and a body and in an environment around me that was, for me, anxiety producing. Mm-hmm. I can say that clearly looking back, although I wouldn't have known that at the time.
Right.
What you would have seen in me as a child was hyperactivity. Never stop. Don't stop moving.
They give that a label today, HDHD or something.
Sure. There's all kinds of labels for that today. Then my parents were just pulling their hair out saying, could you please sit still for just one moment? And the truth of the matter is I couldn't do it. And so when I reflect on what the core of my addiction was, At some point in my childhood, I made a decision that I was going to show up in the world in a way that I thought the world wanted me to show up, rather than showing up as authentically me. I don't know the day. I don't know the week, the month, the year, but that was a decision. The behavior paid off for me. That means I got some attention, or I got some love, or I got something I was looking for as a child. And that behavior, that inauthentic behavior, continued. Now, that's to say that I left my authentic self.
Yes.
That is at the core for me, in my perspective, of all addiction. And so my dear friend, who I think you know, my colleague, Nikki Myers, she speaks a lot about addiction and recovery and yoga, 12 steps. She refers to codependency as the disease of the lost self. And I believe, as she does, that that disease of the lost self is at the core. So what's my addiction? Avoiding myself. And it's painful to avoid
and avoiding
oneself.
the present.
Avoiding this moment.
Right.
Avoiding what's true. And so what happens to a person who avoids themselves is they are anxious, they're uncomfortable. They won't even necessarily know why. It's kind of like a scratch, like an itch that you can never quite scratch.
Right.
What's wrong with you? I don't know, but something feels like it's wrong.
Right.
Like all the time.
Right.
Low grade.
Yeah.
Not anxious where you would even notice it. Like I said, you would just see me running around, playing lots of sports, but never ever being still, never taking the time to get to know myself, never cultivating a relationship with stillness or silence or calmness.
Right.
And spending a whole childhood like that.
Right.
It begins there. I'm still uncomfortable. Why? My baseline is anxiety. I'm reaching out to something that could be sports or video games, or in my day, pinball. That could be food, sugar, especially sugar-addled foods. That was me. And later on, drugs, alcohol, sex, money, food, gambling, whatever the thing would be. You reach out from your baseline. So if my baseline is anxiety, I reach out for whatever it is. I have the sensation of getting high, meaning relief from the condition I've been living in.
Right.
Something different.
Right.
Then I crash and I return to my baseline.
Right.
My baseline is anxiety. I only know myself as that feeling. Of course, that's not my true self.
Right.
I only know myself there. And unless I can slow down long enough to penetrate beneath that anxiety, I won't ever get to know myself. All my actions in the world from that point forward will be action-reaction to this addictive behavior.
Right.
Started by the fact that I actually don't know who or what I am.
Right. It's a personality construct that was a reaction to something in your life.
Precisely.
And that personality construct is just running the whole show, creating perception, thoughts, experience, addictive behaviors, but it's not you.
Exactly.
It's a constellation of all these shifting personalities.
Exactly. And as I go along in this path and things don't end up going my way, well, I need to hold someone responsible for that.
Right.
Who's responsible for this?
Somebody's to blame.
So I have to find someone to blame.
Right.
Or at the very least, I have to complain. I'll stay in blame and complaint. Blame and complaint can exist simultaneously with gratitude.
Right. Very difficult.
So there I am, actually a bright and light, heart-based kid who's cut off from that. You would see me as, wow, he's got so much energy. He's on the bright side of life, but unable to settle, unable to really calm down. And so I go through life like that. And as I reach my adolescence, I find cannabis. So we could say I found a substance, and when I got high for the first time, it was the first time I took a deep breath in my life. Truly.
It abated the anxiety for a moment.
It did. And I, of course, didn't know I had this anxiety. I just knew my life was the way that I knew it to be.
Right.
Kind of like if you had air conditioning on in the background your whole life, and then finally somebody turned it off.
Right.
And you'd say,
quiet.
Oh, had that been on the whole time?
Right.
You know, so I found cannabis, and I found a way to treat my condition. And I loved it. And it turned me on to some new possibilities and new experiences and new people. And it was very exciting and experimental and exploration for the first time. And that constant sort of anger or anxiety or worry or whatever that thing was chilled for a moment. So through this mechanism of cannabis, I was actually able to calm the hyperactive mind. It's a medical fact that does that. As we talk about addiction, it's important to understand what things do for you.
Right.
Not just all the negative effects.
Right.
So for me, I have to look at cannabis and say that was something that was helpful for me at that point in my life to treat my hyperactive mind. I later would find out there were prices to pay for that, and I would find out that it was a very cheapened approach to dealing with that problem.
Right.
Very low grade approach. There was a big upgrade to that, which is what my book is about. But at first it was cannabis, and I made that the center of my life. And so you would see me and you would say, okay, well, that's a person who has become passionate about his use of cannabis. And ultimately you would say, wow, that person's become dependent upon that now.
Right.
For just about any kind of joy in life.
Right. And then what happened after that?
So what happens there is you're still not dealing with the core problem. And the core problem is your disconnection from yourself, ultimately. Highest self, what you truly are. The point within you, which is, we refer to it as the divinity within.
Yes.
So when we say namaste, we're recognizing the divinity in someone else. Maybe even by saying namaste, we're pointing their attention to that thing. Well, being in a total state of disconnection from oneself is an uncomfortable place to be. And so we continue to find solutions for that discomfort. So what we're doing is we're setting ourselves up for a pattern of feeling anxiety, or for other people it might be depression,
right,
or violence, rage, anger,
right.
Whatever it is, and then treating that with whatever the substance might be or the behavior might be, and then feeling a sense of relief, which a person comes to understand as happiness. I've relieved myself from my pain. I'm now happy. And of course, that's neither happiness nor contentment.
It's pseudo-happiness based on a condition.
Yes.
Yeah.
You couldn't know contentment because you haven't yet connected with your true self.
Right.
And so we continue to search the world for whatever the thing is to relieve us of this problem. So that's to say that the focus is external.
Right.
Totally. And an external focus, a life based on external focus, typically is a life of suffering. And the great masters have told us this time and time again. Jesus, behold, the kingdom of heaven is within.
Right.
As within, so without.
Right.
And these teachings come down through time, and we mostly don't pay attention to them until maybe we have to.
Rock bottom, baby.
That's it. And so that's what happens to someone like me. Disconnected from self, wandering the world looking for a solution to their pain. Going down different roads, whether that's career, money, or relationship, sex, or substances, or some form of drama or adventure, never stop moving. And it's not like life is all bad.
Right.
You're having lots of high sort of exciting moments, but it's not sustainable.
Right. Excitement has the opposite, which is depression. Because you get excited and then you go down. It's different from enthusiasm. Enthusiasm is your connection to the presence, the divine, but excitement has its seeming opposite.
Yes.
Yeah, so you were living an adventurous, exciting life, getting high, and then coming down, getting high, coming down.
Yes.
Which is, you're describing the life of a lot of people, even today. They're curating drama, worry, anxiousness, anxiety, taking whatever they want to take to alleviate that inner condition. But as you described, it's only temporary, because the moment you come down, you're still connected to that part of your personality that's not awake.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's a life of Sisyphus, constantly pushing the boulder up, coming back down, pushing the boulder up, coming back down, and not really having that happiness that you're describing.
And that's why in Recovery 2.0 we talk about addiction is not really limited to any class of people.
Right.
It seems more to be associated with the human condition itself.
Right.
And so somewhere you're on the spectrum, whether it's a substance. I write and speak about the big six. So that's drugs, alcohol, food, the people addictions. So that would be like codependency, relationship disorders, or sex addiction, money addictions, gambling, shopping, hoarding, these kinds of things.
Shopping therapy, people called it back in the 80s
retail
and 90s.
therapy, right?
Retail,
Yeah.
They still call it that now,
Yeah.
but I remember when that started.
Yeah. And of course now we have technology, which we're all involved in.
Right.
And is a constantly available source of distraction.
Right.
So we have these things that we can lean into to distract ourselves from what's really going on.
Right.
And it becomes normalized, and it just sort of drops into the background as this is how I get through a day.
Right.
Only problem is we're not really living in the wonder and the awe of life.
Absolutely.
And existence.
Now you've been free or sober for over 30 years now. So when was that moment that you began to integrate yoga or spiritual insights into your life that became now your foundation for you help other people being free as well? What happened?
Yeah, well, the first detox. So I look at recovery. One of the ways I look at it is in a series of detoxifications. The first detoxification is going to be the grossest, meaning the most physical.
Right.
So I had to come off drugs.
Right.
In the physical body, I had to get over my addiction to opiates and cocaine and alcohol and cannabis and all the rest of it.
Right.
And so that first detoxification happens usually on the tail of a form of desperation.
Yes.
And so we speak about the gift of desperation, G-O-D.
Yeah.
And we talk about how important that is as a vehicle. Desperation can be a vehicle for getting onto a new path.
Right.
It's not a great vehicle for maintaining movement along the path, because what happens is you're going to start to feel better. Your desperation is going to go away. You're going to need another reason to be on this path of spirit, or this path towards truth or healing. And it can't rely upon the horrible fear of the way you used to be.
Right.
Most people in recovery base their recovery, no matter how long they're in recovery, on that original fear.
Right.
The thing that really happens for the people that I'm seeing be the most contented and the most successful on a path of recovery is that fear will ultimately turn to love. And that process of moving from fear to love is what I believe true recovery and true spirit is really about. I once stayed sober because I had to. I had to because I knew, number one, I could very well die if I didn't.
Right.
And I didn't want to die. Also because the horror of it, of abject drug addiction, so painful. I didn't want to go back to it. I was afraid of myself in that condition.
Right.
And so those were the reasons. Later on, I would develop a life through the practice of yoga, meditation, breath work, healthy diet, lifestyle, looking at my relationships, asking the hard questions of myself, learning through my marriage and my commitment with my wife, and all that means. All the things. I would start to build a life where I fell in love.
And when you describe in love, what are you speaking of? Love it's such an interesting word.
Yes. So what I'm speaking about here is love that's not attached to a particular object.
Yeah. Okay.
Like being in a soup.
Yeah.
A soup of love. So to say I'm in love, I'm in love generally.
Right.
With the existence.
Yes.
With consciousness.
That's mature. That's mature love. Spiritual mature love.
And that's not a love that I grew up with, and that's not a love that I understood or ever experienced through the first part of my recovery. I experienced it as a result of the work I did on the path of yoga.
Right.
When I started to connect with my true self.
Right.
When I could cultivate stillness and calm down, sit down, cool down, and finally get to know me and realize that, wow, I'm pretty good company. Like I could actually just fall in love with existence itself.
Right.
Not in the arrogant or ego sense of, oh, I love me. But I love existence.
Love
flowing.
life.
Yes, I love life.
Yeah. We like to say that, as you mature in loving, you just love to love. And you don't need an object.
That's it.
You don't need an object. You just love to love. Whereas when you're living in your lesser personality identity, you need to have an object. I have to have a girlfriend or a boyfriend. I have my dog. I love my house, or whatever the case may be. But when you mature, you just love to love. And whatever comes into your field, life is bringing that to you to love. Yes. Namaste. And then if there's nothing there, you're good company, as you just described.
Yes.
You're okay.
Yes.
Because you're just in love with life.
Yes.
Because life is love.
And I feel that people who are listening to this, they might think, wow, that's so far away from me, or so far advanced down this road of recovery. And what I would say to that is, everything is one step after the next.
Absolutely.
I'm 32 years sober today, but I'm still working on me today. Mm-hmm. I'm very much a work in progress. Mm-hmm. And in my relationships and in my work and in my behaviors and the way I show up in the world, I'm given little clues about where things are going well or not so well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
all the time. And what has shifted for me is that I don't think there's anything wrong with me,
right,
in my humanity.
Right.
But I used to. Mm-hmm. And so that's called shame or guilt.
And you try to fix it.
Try to fix that or pull the second arrow. So I did something wrong, but now I feel bad about myself for having done something wrong. And,
right.
People need to take a deep breath and ease up on themselves a little bit.
Absolutely.
Through this process. But it was a series of detoxifications from gross to more subtle. Mm-hmm. And they're still continuing today.
Absolutely, yeah. I remember, a number of years ago when I woke up, I had my first awakening experience, and I never got high again after that. Never drank any more alcohol. Occasionally, I maybe have a sip of wine here and there. It just fell off. So I never called myself being in the sober community. I never went through that process.
Yes.
But everything dropped, and and the clarity of just being clear was just so blissful.
Yes.
It's like, why would I ruin this?
You wouldn't want to give it up.
And I tell you, one time I did, again, this is many, many years ago, some cousins came to visit me. I'm originally from D.C. My cousins came to visit me. I hadn't gotten high in years. And they were getting high. I wasn't judging them. They could get high. It was okay. I wasn't. I said, just to be in community, I took one hit. And my consciousness shrunk. I mean, I didn't know where I was living until I lost it for a second. It was like, what happened? This isn't high.
Yes.
I started feeling the worry and the anxiety that human beings feel about life.
Yes.
And I said, this is what people feel like? That was the last time. That was somewhere in the early 80s,
yes.
When that happened. Never again.
I love it. That we would call that doing a little more research.
Yeah.
And getting such a point of clarity.
Yeah.
There's this great French saying, in English it translates as, you can recognize happiness by the sound it makes when it's leaving.
Yes. I'll never forget that. I can still see my cousins in the living room. I can see them. It's like, why would anybody do this to themselves?
Right.
Right. And then one time I accidentally, this is really interesting, my mother-in-law at the time was suffering. Somebody brought her some edibles. And I was taking a nap. When I woke up, I saw these cookies in front of me. I thought somebody had given me some vegan cookies, because they know I'm plant-based. And so I said, I wonder who brought, and they were sitting right there and right in front of me.
Yes.
And I said, somebody brought me some vegan cookies. This is beautiful. So I take a bite out of this chocolate chip cookie, and then I take, a rather big piece of it. And then I'm about to eat the whole thing. And then something said, don't do it. And I said, okay, I'm not. So then I went to sleep, and I'm traveling through all these universes. I think I'm nuts. I think I'm going crazy. What the hell is that? I thought I was dying. I was so out that I actually thought I was dying. And I said, I woke up, I said, tell everybody that I love them. I think this is my last day. I'm out of here. And I closed my eyes, and I got locked in this, like a coffin kind of container with bars on it. There was no way out. And I'm in there, and I can't get out. And I said, how am I going to get out of this? So I got really still, got quiet, and I said, I'm out. And then I was out. Then I came back to consciousness, and I said, someone asked me, said, what did you did you eat anything? I said, no, I haven't eaten anything. I don't know what's going on. There was some vegan cookies in front of me. I ate a couple, and they said, those weren't yours.
Not yours to eat.
Oh, we forgot. We placed it in front of you, but we didn't know. We're so sorry. And that was the last time. That was years ago, too. But again, I said the question, why would anybody do this to themselves?
Yes.
You know.
Well, you would do it because you didn't know of another way.
Yeah.
Or you would do it because you were in consistent pain. I say that everybody in addiction is in chronic pain.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I was saying that rhetorically. I mean, I know why, as you're breaking it down, I know why people do it. But it was like, oh my God, I'm so glad, I got free. Because when I was in college, I did, everything.
Yeah.
And I used to say back then, I'd smoked so much marijuana that I won't have glaucoma for my next 5 lifetimes.
You're covered.
I'm covered. So I have no judgment on people's path. I've like you, I've done it all. But sobriety and insight and wonder and awe and bliss and ecstasy is way more beautiful. That's why I like to say life is good.
Yep. Yep.
Now your book, it's 2.0, Recovery 2.0.
Yeah.
You've covered some of the tenets in that book, just in your dialogue. So what are some of the other main tenets?
Yeah. Well, there's this idea that we receive an inheritance from our parents, which is not just genetic, but epigenetic.
Right.
Meaning we see how they react to life in down to the molecular reaction that they have to everything. And we take a lot of that on. That's to say that we take on our parents' unresolved things. It gets passed down.
Yeah.
One way I can say this is that people feel that addiction is related to your genetics. There's a lot of people in your family who are having struggle with alcohol, for example. You must have the gene or some gene that, and I don't see it that way. What I'm understanding is that people behave the way that they're trained to behave. So I believe that we trained ourselves into addiction. And I believe that we can train ourselves out.
Right.
But I believe that the deeper we go down that road, the harder it is to train oneself out. It becomes incredibly difficult.
Entrained. Yeah.
Yes,
right.
You become entrained.
Right.
And so I'm learning from my father, for example. I might have learned to eat really heavy food late at night when you're worried, go to bed on a full stomach, and repeat that for 30 years, and then have kidney failure. So I'm not genetically predisposed for kidney failure. I'm behaviorally predisposed
habitually
to eat food late at night and go to bed when I'm uncomfortable.
Right.
And create blockage and problem in my body.
Right.
That's what I have to look out for.
Right.
So how can I break out of the conditioning and the patterns of my inheritance from my family and my peer group and my teachers and all the influences upon me? That's what Recovery 2.0 is all about.
Right.
It talks a lot about the 12 steps to help people have a newfound understanding of the 12 steps, because the 12 steps get a pretty bad rap in our society. There is a genius there.
No, it is. I don't know about the bad rap, but I do know about, even when you study Dr. David Hawkins' work, and he talks about the field of recovery that's vibrating at something like 540 minimum, that when you're in that field of people who are authentically going through the recovery process, just that field itself, if you're in it, assists you in the recovery, just hanging out in it.
Yes.
I don't know too much about the bad rap that it has.
Yeah, the bad rap comes from people who look at it from a need for scientific backing. And so there's a lack of scientific metrics and explanation for human and spiritual development.
Oh, yeah.
It's a very difficult thing to measure.
Right.
And so people would look at, it seems that Alcoholics Anonymous is only 5% successful of all the people that ever went there. Well, that's not true. It's maybe 5% successful for people who went there but never engaged in any of the work of the 12 steps and just were sort of on the fringe of it.
It's like saying soap doesn't work if people aren't washing with it.
That's right. Yeah, only 5% of the people,
right.
they're just not using the soap.
Not using the soap.
Right. So I have a funny conversation that I have at a wedding or a bar mitzvah or a funeral or whatever it is. There's always the bar.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a real conversation I had with a guy this one day. I went over to the bar and I ordered a Pellegrino, some sparkling water with some lemon.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy was looking at me, mm-hmm. And he ordered a vodka and orange juice.
Mm-hmm.
And he looked at me and he said, I notice you're not drinking.
Mm-hmm.
Is that because you have a problem with it? And I looked at him and I said, well, I notice you are drinking. Is that because you have a problem with it?
Did you say that?
Yeah. Because of the two of us,
right.
He's drinking alcohol, I'm not. Which one of us might have the problem?
Right. What did he say?
Well, we just laughed. He was able to laugh and we went our own ways.
Right. You may have planted a little seed there.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
But it really underlined that idea that in our society, the correct way to go through time and space is to involve yourself with alcohol.
I know. I've watched recently in certain movies, it's in all these movies now. I remember before cigarettes and alcohol had kind of faded out of movies, and now they're like back. Everybody's drinking in scenes, and they're drinking not just beer, they're drinking like hard alcohol. And it's like, when did this happen? Is it? I mean, I don't know. Is that happening in our society? Because obviously I'm not associating with that energy, but
I love that you don't know. I love that you don't see it every day.
Yeah.
Yes, I'd say alcohol is our society's pressure release valve.
Yeah.
And I think it's worse and worse. And through the pandemic, we
oh yes, right.
recognize we have a mental health crisis that we've never faced before.
Right.
Suicide rates doubled in the year.
Absolutely. I know about that.
2021, 2022. And isolation isn't something that we take well to.
Right.
Fear.
This is very important, though, because you've described it's okay. You like being alone. I like being. I like when I'm by myself. It's heaven.
Yes.
I love people. I mean, I'm a social person.
Exactly.
But I love when I get those moments. I'm absolutely by myself, and if it's extended for a day or 2, 5 days, I'm good with that.
Yes.
But a lot of people can't handle that. They need the friction of rubbing up against somebody, even if it's an argument.
Yes. We are interdependent beings, not codependent.
Right.
Interdependent beings. If everyone in the world was connected to their innermost self, if everyone in the world had a meditation practice and they had cultivated the ability to sit and to be with themselves, to literally transcend their thoughts and to move beyond just an understanding of themselves as their thoughts and emotions. If everybody in the world had done the work of reconnecting here,
Right.
then everyone in the world would be much more comfortable being with themselves.
Right.
That's not the case in the world today.
I know it.
And it gets exacerbated when we're being forced into isolation. We still need each other.
Yeah.
No matter what work you've done, we are interdependent beings. We're social creatures, and we love each other. And it's even possible that, in recovery we say, nobody can do it for you, but you can't do it alone.
Right.
And there's something beautiful to that paradox, that you might have a key to my unfoldment in your heart. You sharing your heart with me does something for me, as you do every week with so many. And me being able to share with someone else from my heart and express truth as it's revealing itself to me, that could do something for them. So there's a need that we have for each other, a healthy need that we have for each other, and we absolutely could be able to sit with ourselves and be in great company if we develop that capacity.
If we develop that capacity, I say from time to time to the agape folks that if you can't sit and be in love with yourself by yourself, you're going to be hell in a relationship. Because if you can't be with yourself, then you're going to try to get this happiness from that person, which is going to become manipulative, coercive, seductive, provocative. You're going to create all kinds of things from your personality to get what you think you need from that person that you have to curate from yourself. And if you don't get it from yourself, then you're going to demand that from a relationship, and that's going to cause another set of drama and issues.
Oh, yeah.
So,
and most people in our society who go through long-term partnerships know precisely what you're talking about.
absolutely. And then there's a blame game again, or the shame game.
That's right.
If you don't deliver and make
That's
that person happy, or if they don't make you happy, there's blame. And if you don't make them happy, there's shame. And the egos are just, fighting it out.
It's too much burden to place on anybody.
Anybody. You can't do it.
To satisfy the needs of my ego.
Yeah.
No good.
Well, listen, you put together a recovery in the yogic practice. You say recovery is a yogic practice.
Mm-hmm.
Break that down for us.
Let's just take a look at modern day recovery through the lens of the 12 steps. So the 12 steps have two purposes. One, create a spiritual experience in the person that goes through them. And two, build a bridge between that person and a power greater than themselves.
Right.
Whatever that is for that person.
Right.
So from that perspective, we're going from a limited consciousness, a finite experience of reality. We're moving towards an expanded experience of reality, say moving towards an infinite viewpoint. That movement from limited to infinite, or from, say, the dark to the light, or from the prison of addiction to the freedom of recovery, that is a yogic process. In yoga, we are moving from disconnection to union.
Right.
The word yoga meaning union.
Right.
It's the place where everything connects. Addiction is the place where nothing connects.
Right.
Everything is disparate. Everything has a blame. Everything has a complaint to it. There's no connectedness between all things. From that place, one just exists in a series of actions and reactions to one's own suffering and pain. We move along that continuum towards a union, which is yoga, through many different processes. The 12 steps is one of them. Recovery from a state of addictedness, connected to one's thinking, one's pain, to a place of freedom where you're liberated from that thinking and that pain. That's a yogic process.
Right.
It doesn't matter that it doesn't involve you getting onto a yoga mat through the 12 steps. But that's the beautiful thing about bringing these elements together. The practice of yoga, the physical practice, which involves movement of the body, breath work, ultimately settling down into meditation to calm the mind, bringing those practices together with a psychological, spiritual process such as the 12 steps, I've seen that be strong enough. In fact, it's one of the only things I've seen be comprehensive enough to really go toe-to-toe with any addiction.
Right.
And set a person free.
Right.
And I know you know this in your own journey through movement of the body and practices and meditation. And so there really is no separation between the path of yoga and the path of recovery. It's all the same thing.
Right. It might be a little different language. However, going from misidentification with the subpersonality or separation, all the way to union when you're more and more identifying with your real self, that particular path is the path of awakening.
Yes.
And freedom.
And we ask ourselves, what's the goal of recovery? If the goal of recovery is just purely abstinence alone, then one would just stop.
That's
whatever
a beginning step.
Yes. Well, that would be like a cornerstone, a necessary step to be able to see more clearly and move along a path. But abstinence is just that first step. And what we're after is freedom.
Right.
In this body, I'm looking for what? Everybody's looking for the same thing. In the physical body, it's called ease. How can I be easeful? So to create ease in this body, why? So that I can apply my creativity, my mind, my spirit towards the unfoldment of my life's journey as dictated by my heart center and my soul. Right. Which is where my fulfillment comes from in this life.
Right.
Every day.
Right.
But if I'm in pain in this body, as so many people in recovery are, it's very difficult to sort of get going.
Right.
And you might come to that day where you say, what was the reason I got sober? What was the point?
Right. Because actually, if a person, and it's a necessary step to get sober. It's a necessary step to stop doing the drugs or whatever it is. But you still might be in relationship with what you're not doing. that becomes, I didn't get high today, I didn't drink today,
Right.
but you haven't yet moved into the next phase. What am I going to do with my life?
That's right.
You know, and sometimes I'll teach people that, you know, you guys want these certain things in your life. You want more money, you want this, you want that. But why do you want it? You know, why, you know, you have to, your why has to be bigger than the thing, because the thing is not going to make you happy. You know, I want to win the lottery. I want the $1 billion. Why? You know, if you don't have a why behind it, then even if you get it, there's no happiness there other than some temporary excitement.
That's
and
it.
Buying a bunch of stuff.
That's it.
You know.
If your nervous system is attuned, as mine was for the whole first part of my life, to that idea of excitement,
Right.
movement, then that's going to look pretty good to win that lottery.
Yeah.
And we know from watching the people who win the lottery, things don't go so well for many of them.
I mean, look at the young man. It was just maybe 2 years ago. He was in early 20s. He won the big jackpot. It was big, millions of dollars.
Yep.
He bought a pound of cocaine.
Yep.
Killed himself.
Right.
I mean, his mother got the money, but she's like sad beyond sad that
Right.
she lost her beloved son.
That's right.
You know, so he played the lottery, won the money,
Yes.
but had nothing. He had no other plan than to buy a pound of cocaine.
It's the greatest misconception in the world that money will solve this
Yeah.
this riddle, this inner world problem. And we only need to look out in the world and see it. But I would say that without question, the thing that people will inevitably come to when they get sober from, for example, drugs and alcohol,
Mm-hmm.
is for a little while, life is definitely going to get better, as well it should.
Mm-hmm.
Then you're going to experience the challenges of life, which were there before the drugs and alcohol came.
That's right. That's right.
You cannot go through life defining yourself as something that you don't do.
Right.
So you're going to need something of meaning and purpose to be able to wake up every day and feel like you're plugged in.
Right.
That's why we talk about connecting with a higher power, a greater sense of meaning and purpose in this world.
Right. All of us have a contribution to make. We have a gift. We have inner talents that need to be cultivated. We have a right and a reason to be here. As you say, not just to not do certain things. Don't murder, don't kill, don't steal, don't abuse your liver with overconsumption of alcohol. But why are you here? And we all have a contribution to make. And when there's sobriety or awakened consciousness, however you want to describe it, we can now navigate through the world, through the challenges, with insight, with revelation, with wisdom and guidance, because we're not going to escape challenge. Every life has challenge. There's going to be somebody that dies in your life. There's going to be some issue, but we're able to, from a broader perspective, garner the wisdom that's intrinsic to us, to think, to say, and to do right action. That probably becomes a little bit of a lift to help us become more of ourselves. So you have another book about to come out, or maybe you're writing it, the Recovery Sutras?
Yes.
Where does that take us?
Yes. So that brings together the philosophy, the ancient philosophy of yoga, as laid out in a seminal text commonly thought of as the Bible, the classical Bible of yoga. And that's the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. So Patanjali, 2,300 years ago, compiles 196 statements, which taken together describe what yoga is, the path of it, the process of it, what you'll experience along the way, the pitfalls that could veer you off the path, and ultimately, what is the experience of yoga? What is this thing that's going to happen if you attain this state of yoga? And he describes that, and as I went into a study of the sutras, I recognized the uncanny similarities between yoga in yoga philosophy and recovery philosophy. It's actually so identical in so many ways. So I started to sit down and write out all those ways that I saw the similarities, and so it's the Recovery Sutras is coming through.
And when would that be out for us?
Not for probably another year yet.
About a year. Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
2024.
We're planting the seed.
Yeah.
Now, you also speak a lot about the mistreatment of addictions. You know, there's some ways that our society mistreats it that seem to exacerbate the issue.
Yes. So a couple of things. Our decision in the United States about how we're going to approach the problem of addiction is primarily guided by the most powerful forces in the United States of America, which is to say the corporations.
Yes.
Those interests are powerful and profound. And so we came upon a strategy right around sort of 2015, not too long ago, where we decided, okay, so many people are dying from this problem. We are now going to treat this problem medically, primarily. So that means that when you show up in most treatment centers in the United States today, they're going to put you on drugs.
Right.
So if you're a heroin or opiate addict, you're going to be put on very likely buprenorphine or Suboxone or one of these drugs, which I actually agree with in the very short term. Suboxone was this miracle drug that could make the horror of coming off of opiates much less painful, make it a manageable process to go through. And it's such a horrible thing to go through, the withdrawal from opiates, that would keep many, many people who are using drugs out on the streets and out using drugs because they just don't want to go through that pain.
Right.
Along comes this beautiful drug, Suboxone. When used for, say, 7 days, it can 80% decrease the painful effects of opiate withdrawal. At some point, I don't know who it was, somebody got the great idea in their infinite wisdom. You know, if we kept people on Suboxone long term, we might actually be able to limit their relapsing. And if we could do that, we might decrease these numbers of people who are dying from overdose, which politically was the main thing that politicians needed to prove was we can address this problem and bring down this terrible rate of overdose. And of course, I'm not an advocate for long-term Suboxone use.
Right. You want lifestyle change. A way of living change.
Yes. Yes. Now, there may be people that are not able or willing to make the lifestyle changes that I'm suggesting. And I want to have compassion for those people as well. And maybe there are people that need to be put on long-term Suboxone in order to give them a fighting chance to get to some of these other levels. So I'm not looking at this as black and white.
Right.
I'm saying that as a policy, the method that we are typically using now it's a combination of things. It's not just put you on drugs and leave you. But the main piece of this that I'm seeing is people are being put on drugs.
Right.
And
but you're saying this, I don't want to interrupt, but I want to go back to a
Please.
previous point. But you're saying this has a lot to do with the fact that we live in a corporatocracy and that profit is oftentimes the motive rather than actually people's recovery. So we can keep people on something for a long period of time. It's more money, it's more profit.
Well, it's interesting. If you've been to treatment one time, the average is that you'll return 6 more times in the United States. That's a fact. So the average is if you go once, you're going to go 7 times. Now, these treatment centers are incredibly expensive. And either you're coming from a wealthy family who can afford to pay for that, or you have very good insurance, and then the insurance companies, meaning you and I, are paying for that. Insurance companies hire doctors to monitor the people who are in treatment. So if an insurance company is paying for me to go to treatment, paying $30,000 for a month, say, they want to know that I'm on drugs, for real. If I'm in treatment and I have refused to be on drugs because I want to try a lifestyle change, they will determine, no, this patient shouldn't be in treatment. They can be handled at a lesser level of care. Because if they don't need to be put on drugs, then they're not that serious.
Right.
That's a really big problem.
It's a big problem.
It's a big problem.
It's a loophole. It's a catch-22. Yeah.
So we have a lot of problems. I think also I'm not a conspiracy theorist and I'm not against, I'm more for things. I just want to say that when you go to treatment, you're in a very protective environment. You know what you're going to do every hour of the day. You have a schedule.
Right.
You know when you're going to eat. Food's prepared for you. when you're going to bed, sleeping, you're going to have a peer group around you, counselors around you, and you're going to be like that for, say, 30 days.
Yeah.
When you get out, even with the best of intentions, you have no schedule. No one's making food for you.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very difficult transition for anybody to make.
Mm-hmm.
And so very, very large number of people relapse within the first 2 months when they get out of treatment. Recovery 2.0 is saying, well, we'd like to be a safety net for people. When you get out of treatment, come see us, please. We have a lot of online activities and a lot of things that anybody can get
This is
involved
found on
with.
your website, too. You have a lot of, let people know about that, too.
Yes. So we have, first of all of the free services that we offer. So our YouTube channel is vast. There's so much you could learn, and you could create tremendous transformation for yourself right there. All of the social media that we put out every single day, positive messaging and important ideas to help people. In terms of our website, so much is there, again, just for free. And then for people who want to go deeper, we have a very inexpensive membership, and we have our destination retreats and our online programming.
Right. Now, you just came back from, how long were you overseas?
So I did a 7-day Recovery 2.0 immersion with 40 people in recovery.
And you also bring people to the International Yoga Festival.
Take people to India every year, bring them to the International Yoga Festival. Pretty much if people are going to get involved with recovery, at first they just have to get sober, get their feet underneath them. But very quickly, I'm going to ask them about their willingness to begin to move the body, begin to breathe in certain ways, and develop a meditation practice. I'm going to ask them to get involved in yoga in a way that's accessible to them.
Right.
I don't do that because I'm dogmatic. I want them to be successful. And this is the most powerful modality that I've seen for someone healing from addiction.
Right. Yeah, I love walking by your room when we were at in India, and I could see people sitting there, and they're just so wrapped with the attention, and you would never think, that they're addicts at some level,
right?
Because they're in deep yogic practice, and I always go by and have like a smile on my face and
thanks, Michael.
Give you guys a blessing and keep on stepping.
Thank you.
And one other thing, you also help people integrate. Like if they have these psychedelic experiences or ayahuasca or whatever the case may be, you assist in the integration of those higher insights.
Yes. So in the spirit of non-dogma,
right?
I encourage people to do the things that occur to them with guidance, with supervision, with consideration and intelligence.
Yes.
If somebody is led down the road of wanting to pursue psychedelic assisted therapy,
right,
or ceremony rituals such as ayahuasca rituals or psilocybin, ketamine, all these therapies are big right now. They ask me, what do I think about that? I tell them, as a younger man, I took a lot of psychedelics. It's been 35 years. Now, I don't advocate for it, but I don't advocate against it.
Right.
If you're called to go do that, okay, let's figure out the best way you can do that.
Right.
And then when you're done doing that, let's integrate into one day at a time for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Because you could have a great experience there. It could also trigger you back into relapse if you're not careful.
Right.
It could also trigger you into some of the darker places without knowing what to do with that.
Right.
And for sure, these are very powerful and very energetic experiences. And a person needs to know where to go with them. So Recovery 2.0 will remain a place that's not advocating for those therapies, but that would very much like to receive people after those therapies and see if we can help them leverage the experiences that they've had in the most positive way.
Yeah, when I go down to Rhythmia Life Advancement Center and they have, the yogic practice, meditation, farm-to-table food, swimming, exercise, cleansing of the colon, and they also have, in the evenings, the ayahuasca. So I seek to assist them in integrating that experience spiritually. And I always teach, you don't come to Agape, you don't come anywhere to get high. You come to get free. so that you don't want to create another addiction.
I love that.
You know, you actually are, if that's your path, it can be used to actually gain an insight that will then free you, rather than I'm gonna get high. Because nowadays people are using these things like for party favors or something, you know, and somebody will go to Peru for 2 months and call himself or herself a shaman, you know, and then they have these, you know, because those practices come from years of tradition. The shaman that come out of there, years of tradition. It's not like 2 months in Peru. You know, it's very serious. It's very focused.
These experiences are so powerful that they overshadow, or they can help a person to not see certain things. If the experience itself becomes the thing that you're after, it's addictive in nature.
It becomes addictive. But it can also shine the things that you don't want to look at, and then you're in big resistance to parts of yourself you don't want to see.
That's interesting.
So then the experience, people will say, I had a bad experience. But it may have been making you look at something about yourself that you weren't ready to look at. So you need guidance and assistance to walk through those dynamics.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're down there.
Yeah. I go twice a year to teach and to assist. And in the shaman, they always say, when you're here, it's totally different. Whenever you arrive, the field is different. People go through it much more with ease and grace.
Yes.
You know, because I set them up differently, you know.
Beautiful.
But
that's beautiful.
So tell us again your website and anything that you want to say that maybe we haven't covered.
Sure. We have a podcast that comes out every week called In the Circle. And it's taken from this concept that human beings sit in circle together to learn from each other. Yeah. It's essentially spiritual Q&A. Yeah. Someone from the community asks a question, and I explore the question with them for one episode of the podcast. So that's been very powerful for people and helpful. R2.0.com is our website, and everything that we do can be accessed from there. We have a membership, which I highly recommend for people. We do something called Monday Night Live in our membership. We've been doing 6 years of that. We missed one Monday in 6 years.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And so there's lots of that, and satsangs, and lots of yoga and meditation classes and all of this. And then we have, we believe very strongly, as you do, that food is, and our approach to food and our reverence for food is very important, especially for people in recovery for so many reasons. Yes. So we do something called the Food Reset as a community every year in October. And then we do something called the 8-Week Awakening, which is December and January every year. These are the endings and the beginnings of a year. Very powerful time, especially charged with family and food and all the emotions that come up in the holidays.
Right.
A very powerful time. Actually, you've spoken and contributed to our 8-Week Awakening in the past. So we do that in December and January every year, and then we take groups of people to India in March every year, Costa Rica in November every year, and then we're throughout the United States and Canada for the rest of the time.
Outstanding.
Yeah. Thank you,
Well,
Michael.
you've been involved today with the podcast Take Back Your Mind. That's what we want you to do. We want you to have dominion over your own awareness and not allow yourself to be a puppet on the strings of anyone else's agenda. You didn't come here to walk lockstep within the status quo of our society. You came to shatter it with who you are as a luminous being. Today we've had Brother Tommy Rosen, Recovery 2.0. You may want to get that book, and then next year you want to get Recovery Sutras. Brother, thank you for being with me today.
Thank you so much, Reverend Michael.
It's great.
Love you so much.
Love you, man. And give your wife my love.
I will.
And we'll send total healing vibrations for her knee.
Beautiful.
And we continue to know that life is good.
All right.
Peace and blessings, everyone. And blessings to you, of course. You notice that as you tune in to Take Back Your Mind podcast, that my guest, including Tommy Rosen, who we just had a conversation with, uses the word meditation. We use the word meditation a lot. Meditation is fundamental to spiritual evolution, spiritual unfoldment. It is the way by which you get to participate in your own unfolding through interrupting the thoughts, interrupting those thoughts that have led to emotions and perceptions and experiences. As you begin to meditate, as you begin to become familiar with that which is within you, without getting caught up with that which appears to be within your mind escape, meditation becomes an escape plan from the constellation of shifting personalities that you may have identified yourself with and as. You become liberated and free. I encourage a meditation practice, just as the dentist and your parents encouraged you to have a brushing your teeth practice. You do it daily to the best of your ability. So we're going to have a brief moment of meditation now. Have your feet firmly on the ground unless you're in a lotus position. Today, have your hands, thumb and forefinger touching on your lap facing upward as a sign of receptivity, as a sign of transcending ego perception or the sense of separation. Close the outer eyes. Just take a deep breath, bring your shoulders to your ears, squeeze everything. Release. At squeezing, you've done the opposite of what you want to do. You've unrelaxed yourself. Now, you are relaxing with the intention of being free. And you're sitting. Stillness. You're sitting. Silence. You're sitting. Inner solitude. You are aware that you are aware. The thoughts may be circulating in the mind. Emotions may be circulating in the emotional body. Sensations may be circulating in the physical body. There may be sounds in the body of your environment. You can notice all of that without getting involved. Because with awareness, you are aware of your intention to wake up. Be still and know. The mind drifts and pulls you with it into futurizing, anxiousness about the future or the past, or fantasies or inner conversations. Just be aware, not doing anything wrong. Come back, bring your attention back to your intention, your breath, just happening presently. Begin again. Stillness, silence, solitude. And with this pure sense of sacred stillness, sacred silence, sacred solitude, let us give thanks that we exist. Let us give thanks for our existence and be free in the reveling of our gratitude that we exist. Let this be our new baseline for this day, as we bear witness gifts of the Spirit flowing through us, called grace, inspiration, guidance. And so it is. May open your eyes. Thank you so much for being with me today on Take Back Your Mind. Listen, some of you have written in and you've gone to my Instagram page and you've said, how can we support the Take Back Your Mind podcast? I've been telling people the way you can support it right now is you can support the sponsors. The main sponsor is the Agape International Spiritual Center. It's agapelive.com. Go to the website, see the many things that we have to be in service to humanity. And you may want to make a donation to Agape that will serve to support the podcast. You could even say in service to the podcast. And our other sponsor is Adaptozen. Superfood greens. You go to Nutrarise.com. You look for Adaptozen. You order the bundle. Superfood greens along with the D3K2, vitamin D3K2. It's going to make your body healthy. You're also supporting the podcast by supporting of the sponsors. Have a beautiful day. Your time is very valuable, so I want to thank you for lending us your ear and participating in taking back your mind. If you want to submit a question for the question of the week, please submit it to podcast@michaelbeckwith.com. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, please submit a review and let us know your thoughts. Stay on top of current episodes by subscribing to the podcast so that you'll receive alerts and not miss one single episode. And feel free to share this podcast with all of your friends and family. And until we meet again, take back your mind and you will take back your life. Peace and blessings.